From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is an OSU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with OSU beat writer Scott Wright. Scott, going against Texas, OSU had an off week heading into that game, and after a disappointing result at K-State, we wondered what would change, if anything. Mike Gundy saying repeatedly, no time to panic, and yet we saw some change. We saw some adjustments by this team on both sides of the ball. Let's start on offense. I think you can safely say wrinkles is what we saw on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they did. They took an opportunity to get some new things implemented, changed up the blocking schemes a little bit, not a ton, but simplified things so that they could be more effective, especially running the ball. Some injuries hit, and they had to make some changes, and things got a little frustrating for them for a little while in the second half. But they looked better there. Mike Gundy threw in some old school I formation. Maybe it was the throwback uniforms that inspired him or something. But they went under center, which you don't see them do very often at all. Haven't done it at least in a few years. And running just old school I formation that tried to get them some short yardage plays, and then they ended up running some play action out of it and throwing the ball. So did some creative things to try to catch Texas off guard in some short yardage situations, which haven't gone well for the Oklahoma State offense at times this year, and it seemed to really pay off. Especially you look at a couple of touchdowns that those packages produced.
Well, you talk about adding some things on offense. It's kind of the opposite in a way on defense, in that they simplified, which is a word that's kind of been thrown around a lot about defenses in our state recently. But what did OSU simplify? How did they do that defensively?
For the most part, their simplification focused on the safeties because those guys are so young. 2 true freshmen who are rotating in, 2 true sophomores who are playing a lot, and then Kenneth Edison Magruder being the veteran who is a redshirt senior, but still a guy who had been playing linebacker for a couple of years. So he's back at safety where he's more natural, but it's still a new scheme, and all of these things that Jim Knowles has brought in. These guys are still picking up on all of this stuff, and so to help the young guys be more comfortable and be able to play without a cloudy mind was the phrase that Mike Gundy kept using yesterday when he spoke to the media. They simplified what those guys needed to be looking at, where they needed to go, and help them know where they needed to be at all times so that they could play faster and more reactive rather than thinking so much. So you saw it help out with the safeties. There weren't really any busted coverages for the most part. You saw A.J. Green have a really good game in man coverage against Colin Johnson, which really helped out as well. So a lot of things that were a little more conservative and a little more basic for this defense, and it paid off. Even though it doesn't, you give up 35 points, it doesn't feel like your defense had a great day, but it was definitely a step in the right direction.
As we think about these changes that we saw against Texas on both sides of the ball, now the question becomes, how does this carry over? Because Oklahoma State still hasn't reached bowl eligibility yet. They still have their toughest games, really. Texas was the start of a really tough run to end the season. Obviously, this game at Baylor this week is sort of the outlier the rest of the year. But are these changes, offensive wrinkles, defensive simplification, we're going to see it carry over the rest of the season?
Yeah, you're absolutely going to see these things and some other things probably begin to just sprinkle in here and there, along with the game plan on offense. And then defense, I think that they're going to maybe gradually build from here as they see what these players are capable of handling, and try to implement things a little bit better there. So, but yeah, you've got teams like Oklahoma and West Virginia still ahead on the schedule. You've got games that you really need to win at Baylor and at TCU ahead. So they need to do everything they can to avoid an incident like the Kansas State game from happening again, where they go up there and they seem completely lost on both sides of the ball. So they've got to avoid those things going forward to make sure they get that 6th win somewhere along the way, and try to keep building for what could be a strong finish to this season. All
right, again, Baylor on Saturday down in Waco, 11 o'clock start for the Cowboys, and the Bears will be there, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.